everyone. Welcome to another session of Straight from the Paws. This is Beverly here, and my guest today is James Hamingway from Social Animal Dog Training. I did it right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Bev.
And
Yeah.
you've been on this show before.
Yeah, sometime last year came on.
So we had all your history when you came on before.
Yeah.
But the thing that we want to talk about today is a dog named Bok Choy.
Ah, Bok Choy.
Bok Choy.
Mr.
Correct.
Bok
I don't know
Choy.
who named Bok Choy that.
One of your creative staff.
One of the
for
creative
sure.
staff.
Yeah.
So I think they were naming vegetables, right?
I
Bok choy
don't- yeah,
came
I
in,
don't
so we
know. I
might
like
have had
bok
a
choy. Why not?
cauliflower, cabbage. We might have had. They have these themes all the time.
Yeah.
So Bok Choy came to us either end of August or the beginning of September.
Yeah,
that
he's
about
been, yeah,
correct?
that sounds about right.
And how long have you been at the shelter, so we get a general idea?
I don't know. I think it's been the last couple of years at least I've been coming by.
Years. We're already talking years.
Yeah, time flies.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
All right, so Bok Choy is the reason we have this show here today. Bok Choy came to us as a stray, and Bok Choy is a white bulldog pitty, kind of a mix, correct?
Yeah, I'd call him a pit bull type dog.
And then we found out something different about Bok Choy that we didn't have, I don't think, ever at the shelter. If we did, I don't remember it. You could tell everybody what was Bok Choy different with.
Yeah, so Bok Choy was deaf. He was assessed by the veterinarian. He could not hear. And so that becomes a challenge in some respects, especially when you're trying to train the dog. You have to come up with different strategies than you would normally use. So that's exactly what we did. And I think that's why he was at the shelter for so long as well.
But he wasn't with us all the time, right? I believe we had a contact with another animal shelter. I think it was Situate.
Yeah, I do remember something
So
about
Bok
that.
Choy was with us for a while, and then Bok Choy left to go to Situate.
Mm-hmm.
And were you working with Bok Choy before he went to Situate?
No, I was not, and now you reminded me. So yeah, he came back from another spot, and he was a little bit, like young dogs can be, a little nippy and demanding.
Yeah, and I don't know if
that
they,
was a
did we
quick
know he was
fix.
deaf when he went to.
I'm not sure that they did.
Yeah,
I'm
we're not sure
that
on
they
that
did.
little connection.
When I started working with him, I was informed that he didn't
was
have his
deaf.
hearing. Yeah. So we started from that basis.
So how did you even begin with him? I mean, I don't even know how you would even begin training a dog that's deaf. He's an adult dog?
He's a young adult. Yeah.
He's a young adult, so he's
dog.
not a puppy.
No.
But he's not old. So within
I think it was about a year and a half.
about a year
or
and a half.
2 years
Okay,
old,
so
yeah.
he's already got a lot of behavior on him.
Yeah.
And he came in as a stray.
Right.
Wow, so he's been out on the street as a deaf dog.
Right.
So how did you begin?
Started real easy, like we do with all dogs. So the thing is about dog training is that you're basically translating everything you do into body language. So any words we use from the dog's perspective are just sounds that come out of our mouths. It's not like with human beings where we're
Language.
where we're
Right.
communicating using concepts. With a dog, you're just using a sound to predict something that the dog.
So when we talk to our own
significant.
dogs in baby talk, that's the sound that they
they
hear.
like it. Yeah, they like the
it,
sound.
yeah.
Why not?
Yeah,
You
so
know.
now Bok Choy doesn't have that.
He doesn't have that, no. So we just started with body language and use hand signals. I reached back into my pre-professional dog trainer years. I had a dog some years ago, and I decided I'm going to train this dog using hand signals only because
Well, a lot of the police officers use hand signals.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe it's used. It's used commonly throughout dog training. It's not an uncommon thing to use hand signals. So anyway, I reached in my basket of memories and started working him using the hand signals I could remember. And then we had the difficulty of that's great if he's looking at you, but
that's true.
once Bok Choy's not looking at you, it's tough to give him a hand signal.
And how do you make them look at you?
Well, we tried a number of things. So we always had him on a leash, of course. So we'd go ahead and we'd, give him a little tap on the leash, and he'd turn around, and we taught him that, hey, when you feel this tap on the leash, that's me trying to get your attention. And once I had his attention, we give him the hand signals. And lucky for us, he's a very willing and obedient dog. A lot of
He
fun.
was a good boy to begin with.
Yeah, he was a really sweet boy. Yeah, there's no problems with him at all from my perspective in our interaction. So then after we had given him some hand signals and so forth, and he was still sitting there, it had been some time. And
I
again,
believe he was there for a full 6 months.
yeah, it seemed, yeah, so like 5, 6 months. And you know, after a while it became, okay, well, how can we make this dog more adoptable? And that's when when you all at the shelter went out and invested in a piece of equipment that I recommended, which was a remote collar. Using that, we were able to not have to have the dog attached to a leash. So now I can have the dog, and you know, for our purposes, we'd have him in the play yard or at the end of a longer line, completely oblivious to what's going on with us, but we were able to signal him using the collar. Once he turned around to see what was going on, we were able to use our hand signals, our hand commands, and that was it. He took to it all right.
That was the work. That's how it happened.
He took to it all right, yeah.
I heard somebody saying you were doing American Sign Language. Is that true?
No, that's not
That wasn't
accurate.
true?
No. If any of the hand signals that I gave him were American Sign Language signals, that was completely by accident.
Oh, by accident. So did you create the signals, or is it what everybody would have used?
I think the signals I use are fairly common. Again, I had tried, before I was doing this professionally, I had trained one of my personal dogs using hand signals. This was 20 years ago, perhaps. So
Can't be that old.
thanks, but yeah. So that's what I just remembered. So it was simple stuff like come. We gave him,
Stop.
his marker was thumbs up. There was another trainer working there who happened to be doing, you know, this.
Oh, the Hawaiian thing.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, you know, similar kind of thing. So when he did the right thing, we give him a thumbs up. We wanted him to come, we told him to come. We wanted him to down, we pointed down. We wanted him to sit, we kind of made a motion that would approximate what we do when we lure the dog's nose up to get him to sit. Once he figured it out, he was okay. Yeah.
Now, how did you train the staff to work with the dog? You weren't there 24/7.
Oh, no. Yeah, so what he did is I worked with a couple of us, worked with Ben and Emma really closely on this. I gave them each a block of instruction on how to do the hand signals. And then once we got the e-collar in there, how to condition the dog to the e-collar, because we don't just
put it on.
You don't just put it on. You got to teach them what it means, and that takes some time. And they did a ton of work with that. When, you know, obviously when I wasn't there, I'm there for an hour a week. Sometimes a little more, but yeah, about an hour a week.
We know, we've dragged you around a couple of places.
And yeah, so they did all that work, getting them conditioned, getting them working. And so then it was easy when he got his foster. It was just as easy. We bring her through, give her a block of instruction, and there you go. Also, we shot a couple of YouTube videos, and
that helped.
That helps for reference, right?
For reference. So we've had Bok Choy on a radio show too. Now, on a radio show, people are listening, but the radio show we were on, they did live streaming also. And Bok Choy was a little star on the show, and you were doing all these hand signals while people were listening to the radio and live streaming, and they could see Bok Choy there. So we've done a lot of exposure with Bok Choy.
Yeah.
Being one of these special needs dogs coming to Forever Paws Animal Shelter, what would have happened to him in another shelter?
I don't know. I think it's just that the fact that you all were willing to put in the time it took to get him to where, you know, you could make a case that this is a super adoptable dog despite his lack of hearing. That was huge. Being able to have the time for your staff to go in and do the conditioning and the training with him and the work with him. That's just, and the investment in the equipment that he needed, right? Specialized for him. Yeah, that's a huge thing. I don't think that most dogs in shelters have that much. There's not always that much time to give to the dog, you know? And also, you know, given the amount of time it took him to get, to find his home, his foster and his adopted home, you know, I think there's probably a silver lining in the fact that he's deaf, because there's that one sensation that isn't kind of, you know, being overloaded with stimulation, and that's his hearing. So where other dogs might get a little nervous about the sounds in the shelter,
He didn't bother him at all.
It couldn't bother him. It couldn't bother him.
And I believe his foster to adopt has another dog.
Yes, yeah, it seems like a really good fit.
So it's a good match.
Seems like a really good match. We were able, again, at the facility at Forever Paws, you guys have that beautiful agility course out back, and it was perfect for the meet and greet with the dog. That way we can let them off leash safely, monitor their interactions, see if they get along in an appropriate way. and that was just fine. And then, you know, like I said, the family he's going with, they seem like real dog people. Like they've got it going on. So you did a great job finding a good match for him too.
I don't know how that happened. I wasn't involved in that process. But you've also done other things at the shelter. So people have adopted a dog from us and needed help with training, and you've gone to the home. So people are now asking you to come to the home and work with one of our dogs. I know you're doing that currently.
Yes, yeah. So right now we're working, you guys, Forever Paws sent me out to do work with a family, took in a young bully type dog. And actually he was from that,
The big case that we had, yeah.
21 dog case. And,
yeah, one of those little pocket bullies.
That's right. And so he, you know, he's a nice little dog, and they had a little bit of issues with him, you know, that developed after he'd been in the house for some time, and having, you know, again, what would happen in another shelter, I don't know, but you all were willing to arrange it so that I can go out there and work with the family in the home, so we can look at the situation, observe the problems where they're occurring, and then get to working on them. And so far, that's I'm happy to report that's going really well
too.
after a couple meetings. Yeah,
little dog named Tyson.
Yeah, his name's Tyson.
I think we've had a couple of dogs named Tyson.
He's a strong boy. Yeah. For a little guy, yeah.
I believe we've had a couple of dogs named Tyson at the shelter.
It's a popular name.
It's getting to be a popular name.
It's
yes,
the champ's name.
The champion. So we've done well in the couple of years that you've been working at the shelter, and you've taught the staff how to work with deaf dogs, and you're going to homes for people. So you've made a big difference at Forever Paws Animal Shelter. I'm really grateful that you walked in one day and decided to volunteer for us. And I think that's what's been happening. So if anybody out there needs to have a trainer, why don't we give them some of your information right now?
Yeah, so social animal dog training is the place to look up on Google. All of my services are done in home, so I come to you. We do our training at home, in the neighborhood, out in the places you are with your dog, and we also provide a free evaluation in home for the first time to meet the dog. I'll come out, meet your dog, ask you a few questions, observe your dog's behavior, give you my assessment, and tell you what I think you need to do for training, and then after that we go from there.
How long do you actually work with a family? I mean, how do you plan it?
Well, it depends on the situation. So, you know, if take for an example a very anxious, kind of fearful dog, that's probably your longest process for working. You've got a dog that just, you cannot rush that kind of work at all. There's no way you can just kind of run through the material and teach the dog to not be afraid of things. Right?
Do you do puppies, like puppy classes?
I do everything. I do everything from puppies to bite cases.
To bite cases.
Yeah.
So just because a dog bites doesn't mean you have to surrender the dog.
No, it doesn't.
You can work with that, right?
Yeah, you can work the dog. I mean, obviously, a dog that's bitten, you know, he's kind of telling you something, so maybe you might not trust that dog around the kids.
That's true, because we do get a lot of
unattended, right?
Yeah, we get a lot of dogs that come in. They're in bite quarantine.
Yeah.
They bit a family member or a friend or a neighbor. We don't want those dogs to have to go to heaven.
No, with proper safe management, with a new and improved communication system with your dog, a proper work regimen for your dog, and then just some basic safety rules of the road. Dog can live a happy life. You can be happy with your dog. Again, you just might not let your children wrestle with your dog.
That's right.
On the bed.
Especially when you first get the dog home. Don't grab them by the muzzle and kiss them. Well, James, thank you again for talking about Bok Choy, our little deaf dog that we had at Forever Paws Animal Shelter. And we want to thank James for coming today and for coming to Forever Paws as a volunteer. Love it. Bye-bye, everybody. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of Straight from the Paws. I am here, Beverly, with a guest, Gail. Hi, Gail.
You
switched roles today.
I did. Unfortunately, our volunteer coordinator had a little bit of a spill, and she didn't want to come on with a black eye. So
I don't know why not. We could put makeup on it.
That's what I told her, but she said
we could have covered it all up with a little bit of makeup.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit about volunteering.
So you're going to be the volunteer coordinator for a little,
I am.
a little spot today.
Yeah, and I do help Joyce with doing the names and figuring out where we need people in the, in the slots and all that. So I think I can figure this out.
So being a volunteer coordinator, that is Joyce, not you, it encompasses an awful lot of stuff. I use the word stuff. Not only do you get the phone calls at your own home, but you have to set up all of the appointments for the volunteers that are coming in and line them up with a trainer and then assign them a slot. And that's where you come in.
So you're telling my job?
No, I'm giving it all to you.
Okay.
So hey, listen, I'm in charge.
Okay.
So we have to send it all to you now. So how does that happen?
So basically, she does receive a lot of phone calls, and people, it'd be nice if people called during normal hours, but some people call like late in the night or in the morning, but she does get all the phone calls. She has an orientation once a month, and she has an assistant, Kristen, who helps her coordinate. And then we also have what we call some veteran volunteers. We have a board member, Marlene, we have another board member, Diane, and we have a couple of other people, Tim and Sherry, that have been doing it for quite some time. Bonnie's another one. And so they're veteran volunteers. So what they do is they schedule in the times that they can come in and the people can come in, and they work at least 2 hours with them to get an idea. Why is that? Because the staff is not available to do it. That we're so inundated with animals. There's a sidebar here. Last year, in 2024, we had over 1,600 animals come through our building.
Oh my God!
And our staff, we only
forget the numbers.
Yeah, and we're looking at maybe 8 people that work. Some work full time, some work part time, and then we have some, Ariana, our director, is the business person, and people up front. So it's crazy. So that's why we ask these senior people that we really appreciate those people that come in and train the volunteers, and that's really a big help. That's a new part of the program.
We never used to do that.
No, it's a new part of the program which has been doing for about 1.5 years now, and it's worked out really well. Then what I do is, just before they have the orientation, I go and I looked at the list and I go through it and see if people are still showing up. I go through the volunteer log. If they're coming, if they're not coming, I pass on the papers to Joyce, so she wants to call and see why they've stopped. There might be a reason why they stopped, or they just didn't like doing it anymore. Some people come to orientation, sign up, and don't even show up.
That happens.
That happens a lot. And what I do is I have slots, like 4 slots throughout the day. And so I try to say at least have 2 to 3 volunteers on each slot. Of course, that doesn't happen, but we try to fill it in as much as possible. Obviously, people that work or students want to work there on Saturday and Sunday. But I can tell you, as you know, any given Sunday or Saturday we go there might be 1 volunteer on during the shifts. But we try to fill it in. We try to do it as fair as possible. Some people stay on longer. We tell them that 20 hours
is the minimum.
Is 20 hours.
So if someone just wanted 5 hours, we say no.
No, because by that time that takes in training, 2 to 3 hours for training. Now you've only got 2 hours to volunteer. It's not worth it.
Not worth it.
It's not worth it for us. And then we also ask that they have to be 18 years of age. But there is a but.
Always a but.
If you have community service, you can be 16 or even maybe sometimes 15 if you're going to be 16 in the summer. So we have a lot of students. Some of the schools are starting community service again, and we do take community service, and we take them from the churches and so on.
Can a volunteer just walk in and volunteer any day they want?
No, that's why we have a schedule. We have a schedule for the main reason that we want to know who's in the building at all time. As you well know, right now people that want to adopt, they have to make an appointment. And the same thing goes for people coming in. We want to know who's in the building at all times so we can monitor.
How can you tell a volunteer from the regular customers?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that because of that wonderful yellow T-shirt that you selected, the color, many years ago when you were the volunteer coordinator.
Yes,
we
the
have
yellow
this bright yellow shirt that everybody loves wearing. And so that's how we know the difference. And when they first come in, we ask them to wear name tags for at least a couple of days so that we know who they are in the building.
That helps.
It does help.
That yellow shirt really helps.
I hate to admit, begrudgingly, I say yes, it does help.
Because I remember many years ago, we had customers walking around the building, we had the staff not in uniforms, and we had volunteers. We couldn't tell who was who.
Right.
And I believe a couple of times we lost an animal, got put into a pocket and walked out
Mostly
of the building.
kittens. Some people have
kittens.
Stolen.
So we had to come up with a plan.
Yes.
And the plan, if I recall, was the staff needs to be in uniform, which we now have, right? And then the volunteers have to be visible.
Yes.
So that as they're walking around going into rooms, it's not a customer just walking into a room. That yellow shirt walking into a room is okay. And that's how we've controlled a lot of the craziness that would go on in the building, plus having appointments for customers now.
Right, and the other thing too that people have to understand, if you want to volunteer, it's not just to come in to play with the puppies and the kittens and maybe walk a dog. We're looking for people to help us maintain the building, which means sweeping the floors, washing the floors, dusting the woodwork, and then cleaning the windows. That type of stuff is really important. We don't let volunteers just go in and start working with the animals right at the beginning. There's a lot of work that has to be done in preparation before you get to that.
And we don't have a place where they can go and take and play.
No, we don't. We do, and we had a walking program, which has fizzled since COVID. But we do train them how to walk. We just don't work on a regular collar. We use a martingale collar for the dogs, the larger dogs. So they're trained by the staff how to walk a dog, and we have the walking trail, and we have the agility trail pen outside that they can play in. That does happen, but you got to have a staff person that's been there for a long time, because remember, we've talked about this before, we have birds and cats, we have dogs, we have guinea pigs, you name it, roosters, we've had a pig, we've had a lot of different animals, reptiles, and people just can't come in and say, oh, what a cute little animal. And sometimes even when you have a sign that says do not touch, staff only, you can see that there's a yellow shirt in that room, and you can go in automatically and say, what are you doing in here?
That's right. That's why the yellow shirt is so important.
It does help. It does help.
Yes.
And people have to be aware of that, because our main concern is the safety of our animals. And that's important to us.
I really agree on all of that, too. The other thing is, how does somebody become a volunteer? I mean, what do you look for in a volunteer?
Well, we basically take anybody that's willing to come in and says they want to help the animals, and if
what do they do?
Well, again, basically at the beginning, it's mostly cleaning. We don't do our dishes like you do your dishes at home, unless you wash your dishes with bleach at home. That might be a problem. So we have to clean everything. We have to be very aware of communicable diseases within the building. That's why we have these little trays. Every time you step into a room, you have to step on the trays. So there's a lot of protocols in place that have to be taught to volunteers. That's why we say a minimum of 20 hours. It used to be 10, and that wasn't enough. It really wasn't enough. So we have a minimum of 20 hours. You come in, you get acclimated, and eventually, do I get to pet a cat? Sure, you might get to. You may even get to walk a small dog. But it's time and reassurance that you're going to do it correctly and you're going to follow our rules. And that's a big thing. We have a lot of rules, a lot of protocols in place, and there's reasons for it. And
well, we have rooms like a quarantine room. You can't put a volunteer in a quarantine room.
Well, we actually have some rooms that have locks on them now. We have, a pad to get in, because people would just, even though the sign said do not enter, staff only, people would walk in. And so we decided to close off the quarantine room. Bee Kennel has a lock, lock on it. We have a lot of different things going on. Recently, just as a sidebar, we have a panic button. When our staff goes into the kennels by themselves, they have a panic button that they have on. And if anything goes on in the building, they hit it, and the front desk knows, and they can also call the emergency if necessary.
Do volunteers go into that room?
No, that's why we tried it. Bee Kennel, they're not allowed to go in, because those are not our animals. They're animals that are brought in from the city of Fall River or the city of New Bedford and different strays. So no, we don't allow that. But the staff wears that, because if they're in there alone, if someone's not with them, they have the safety of that. So we're always looking for the safety of the animals, safety of our staff, and of course our volunteers and potential adopters.
What would happen if a volunteer got hurt volunteering?
Well,
what's the protocol for that?
Well, we have, first of all, you have to be with a staff person, and hopefully someone else saw what happened, and they have to fill it. We have an accident sheet that has to be filled out, and if the director, or we have shift supervisors there, they have to go in and they have to set up the protocol. We ask them, if it's a scratch or a bite, we'll take care of it medically in our medical room. If they want to go, if they want to go home, or if it looks like a bad bite, we'll tell them that they have to, let us know how they make out if they go to the hospital. Sometimes that's happened from a scratch bite. Someone's gotten a little infection and they call the next day. But we have all our information written down.
And when they fill out this volunteer application, they have to be honest. Isn't that true? I mean,
Yes.
if you don't put down all the correct information and then something happens to you because you didn't put the correct information, like for instance, you're allergic to rabbits, highly allergic to rabbits, but you don't put that down in the application, and then you have an attack of asthma or something because you walk into a room and we have a rabbit in there. And later on you say, but I'm allergic to rabbits. But did we know that?
No, and that's why we have a big contract right now, and they have to sign it. And if they're under 18, the parent has to also sign it. We ask you to be honest and tell us what your allergies are. I mean, I use myself as an example. I'm highly allergic to a lot of animals.
Correct.
And I take shots for it because this is my choice of what I choose to do. But I also always have my inhaler with me, and I don't go into the room that has the rabbits with the hay because I'm allergic to the hay as well. I stay out of those rooms. And kitten rooms, I'm not really good with kittens or cats. So I know enough to stay away from. Do I still volunteer at the shelter? Yes, I do. And can I work there? Yes, I can. But I don't work directly with the animals. And some days I know when I'm not feeling that great, I stay out of certain areas, or I just stay in the office and do my work there. So it is difficult, and we have had people in the past that, and again, they don't follow the protocol.
If that happens, do we fire volunteers?
Well, we ask them not to come back. Yes, we do.
So that has happened.
That has happened. We've asked them not to come back.
So following the rules is the most important thing.
It is important. Like anywhere else in society where you go, there are rules that you have to follow. And we also right now have, I forgot what we call it, but we have a conduct of
Code of conduct.
Code of conduct that we had to write, and we have that place in the building, and that goes also for the volunteers as well, to treat each other with respect, and to be kind to each other. And we went on, and you don't use vulgar language and so on and so forth. And that's another thing. If you're volunteering at the shelter, we expect you to be aware of your surroundings. There's people coming in to adopt. We expect you to handle yourself, not use vulgar language. We have a dress code for them as well. So there are certain things that we expect of the volunteers.
And they play on their phones?
No, they can't play on their phones. They're allowed to keep their phone. It's not the best idea, but because if they have an emergency, they can, go to the front desk and get someone to call. But yes, they can. We don't like them to keep the phone because if they drop the phone somewhere, they lose the phone, we have lockers that they can put them in until the end of the day. We tell them not to bring their purses in or anything like that.
Well, that helps. So, hey, I think we're almost out of time again, Gail.
I know.
These shows go by so fast. I'm amazed. I think we talk a lot.
I think you and I have a lot to convey because we know everything that's, what's happening, all the things over the years that have happened and what can change. You were volunteer coordinator for like 10 or 11 years.
Yes.
So you know what's happening.
So if you are interested in volunteering, you could call the shelter, 508-677-9154, and ask for the volunteer quarters phone number, and she'll set you up. You can come in for an orientation and join our little crew at Forever Paws.
They're usually the first Sunday of the month?
First Sunday of every month
First
is
Sunday of the month.
the volunteer orientation day. And it lasts about an hour.
No, a couple of hours now.
A couple of hours now, because you have to buy shirts and everything. Well, again, thank you. We hope we've been very informative, and we hope everybody loves our little shows that we put on for the community. Thanks again.